Hello and welcome to the start of Unit 11. We are going to start Unit 11 ironically back in Chapter 10. This is Section 10.7. The reason we go ahead and start with Chapter 10 or with Section 7 in Chapter 10 is because it fits better in this unit than it does in the previous unit. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about circles in the coordinate plane. We're going to let the coordinate x, y represent any point on a circle with the center at the origin, which we should know is 0, 0, and radius r. This ends up with using the Pythagorean theorem, we can actually create an equation to graph circles. And this is how we write that. I take my x-coordinate squared and my y-coordinate squared, and that's going to equal my radius squared with no matter what x, y coordinate I use. I can use any coordinate on this circle here. So with that, we actually come up with a different equation, because what if we aren't at the origin for our center point? Well, we have an equation for that, and we call this the standard equation of a circle. And this just tells us that we have x, y as a point on the circle with center written as hk, and that radius is still r. And what I mean by hk is if we say that this is 3 and this is 4, my center point here is at 3, 4. So h is actually the x value of the center point, and k is the y value of that center point. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and create my lovely equations of my circle. So in this first section, like I said, I broke this section up into two. Then here we'll do the second part in the next video. But for this first part, we are just writing the standard equation of a circle. And in the second part, we are going to graph the standard equation. So for this one here, I have 3 different ways we can see it. I can see it the first way, which is actually by a graph. The second way, excuse me. The second way is by being given the center point and the radius. And then my last way is by being given a point on the circle and my center point. And so I'm going to show you these 3 ways. So starting here, I need to go ahead and write out my formula until I have this memorized, because that will make it easier for later on. And I need to recognize what I need. I don't need an x and a y. Just like we write the standard equation of a line, we need to have variables in it. So I just need to know h, k, and r. And actually, I'm going to move r down a little bit. So how to do that is I'm going to take a look at my circle, and I'm going to pick the 2 furthest points left and right from each other. This is the easiest to do on a graph, especially since we are on the lines and not in between them. Even if we were in between them, it would still be easy to find. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and count from one side to the next. In this case, it's 6. And that gives me my diameter of 6. Now, I don't need my diameter, I need a radius. So I'm going to divide that by 2 to get my radius to equal 3. From here, I'm going to go in from one of the furthest points, 3 bounces, and that tells me my center point. In this case, it's going to be the origin, so h is 0 and k is 0. So I'm going to take these and plug these in to my equation, to my standard equation, 0 for h, 0 for k, and my radius is 3. And then I'm going to simplify. Now, the best way to simplify here is if I notice that I have a 0, any x minus a 0 is going to still be x. For example, if we said x is 5, 5 minus 0 is still 5. So I'm going to go ahead and cross out these zeros and just say x squared plus y squared equals 3 squared, which is 9. Awesome. And this is the first method that you can do. Now the second way that you'll see this is if I have a circle or if I'm given the center and I'm given the radius. In this case, I'm told that my circle has a center at 0, -9. So this is now my h and my k. And then I have a radius of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and say that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals my radius squared. And then I'm going to go ahead and just leave my little placeholders. And say x minus h, which is 0, squared plus y minus -9 squared equals 4.2 squared. I can go ahead and simplify this. The thing is, I can leave the 0 in there if it makes it easier for me to see, or I can go ahead and say x minus 0 is always going to be x, so I don't need it. But if you want it there, I will not count that wrong. So you can say x squared plus y plus 9 squared equals 4.2 squared, which is 17.64. And this is my final answer. I have one more problem for you. It shows the third way that you can have, or that you will have to write an equation from. So writing a standard equation of a circle, when I'm given a point on the circle, let me make this clear, it's on the circle. So this would be an x and a y in my equation. And then we have a center of -1, 3, which is my hk. So from here, I'm going to say x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And I need to figure out my radius because that's what I need left. So from here, I'm actually going to go ahead and plug everything in and then solve for r. What I mean by that is just like if we needed to solve for our for our y-intercept, we would plug in a point on that line and solve for a y-intercept using the slope that we are given. We're essentially doing the same thing here, except we're trying to find our radius. So I'm going to say -5 minus h, which is a -1, plus 6 minus k, which is a 3, is going to equal r squared. So I'm going to have -5 plus 1, which gives me a -4, plus 6 minus 3, which is 3, equals r squared. This gives me, 3 squared. This gives me 16 plus 9, which equals r squared. 25 is going to equal r squared, which gives me a total of 5 to equal r. And remember, the square root of 25 is going to be that positive and -5. However, since we are talking about the radius, which is a length, I cannot have a negative radius. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to rewrite my equation with everything in it that I just did. So I'm going to say x minus a -1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 5 squared. And then I'm going to go ahead and simplify this. This is going to be me an x plus 1 squared. Let me change colors real quick to make that a little easier to see. Plus. So I have an x plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 25. And that is writing equations of a circle. Come back for part 2 to learn how to graph those equations.